doesn't always announce itself with tears. Sometimes it just sits in your chest like a stone you've learned to carry. You've trained yourself to smile through it, to function through it, to keep moving like everything's fine, when inside you're bleeding. You've become so good at pretending that even you've started to believe the lie. But tonight, we're going to talk about something most people will never understand. We're going to talk about the power of acting as if nothing hurts you, not because you're numb, not because you're broken, but because you've discovered something the world had taught you yet. You've discovered that your response to pain determines whether it destroys you or develops you. Let me say that again. Your response to pain determines whether it destroys you or develops you. Most people let their wounds write their story. They let rejection define their worth. They let failure become their identity. They walk through life with invisible signs around their necks that say damaged, broken, not good enough. And the world reads those signs. People treat you the way you carry yourself. Life responds to the energy you project. When you walk around broadcasting your pain, you attract more pain. When you operate from your wounds, you make decisions that create more wounds. You become a magnet for everything that confirms what you already believe about yourself. But there's another way. There's a kind of strength that doesn't come from never being hurt. It comes from being hurt and choosing not to let that hurt dictate your next move. It comes from bleeding internally, but walking with the dignity of someone who knows their value isn't determined by what happened to them. It comes from understanding that your current pain is not your permanent position. You're passing through, not staying there. You're being processed, not being punished. Think about this. Every person you admire, every leader you respect, every success story you've heard, they all have one thing in common. They all got hurt. They all face rejection. They all experienced seasons where it felt like nothing was working. But somewhere along the way, they made a decision. They decided that their pain would not be their prison. They decided that their wounds would not be their identity. They decided to act as if nothing could stop them, even when everything hurt. And that decision changed everything. Now, I need you to understand something critical. Acting as if nothing hurts you is not denial. This isn't about pretending your pain doesn't exist. This isn't about suppressing your emotions or putting on a fake smile. This is about refusing to give your pain the power to paralyze you. This is about acknowledging the wound but not worshiping it. This is about feeling the hurt but not building your life around it. There's a massive difference between ignoring pain and not being controlled by it. You see, pain wants to be the loudest voice in your life. It wants to dictate your decisions. It wants to tell you what you can do, who you can become, where you can go. Pain wants to shrink your world down to the size of your wound. It wants you to stay small, stay safe, stay stuck. And if you let it, it will convince you that staying hurt is somehow noble. It will tell you that your suffering makes you special. It will seduce you into believing that your wounds are your identity. But here's the truth that will set you free. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become in spite of what happened to you. You are the decisions you make when everything inside you wants to quit. You are the person who gets up when life knocks you down. You are the warrior who keeps fighting even when the battle seems lost. That's who you are. Not the person who got hurt. The person who refused to stay hurt. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a seed buried in dark soil. It's alone. It's surrounded by pressure. It's covered in dirt. From the outside, it looks dead. But inside that seed, something's happening. Life is stirring. Potential is awakening. And that seed has a choice. It can stay dormant, waiting for perfect conditions that may never come. Or it can start pushing. It can start breaking through its own shell. It can start forcing its way through the very soil that's crushing it. Now here's what most people miss. The soil isn't the seed's enemy. The soil is the seed's environment for transformation. The pressure isn't there to destroy the seed. The pressure is there to develop the seed. The darkness isn't punishment. The darkness is the womb where potential becomes reality. And when that seed decides to push, when it decides to grow, despite the pressure, despite the darkness, despite the weight, it discovers something powerful. It discovers that everything that seemed designed to bury it was actually designed to plant it. That's you right now. You think you've been buried, but you've been planted. You think you're in a pit, but you're in a process. You think you're being crushed, but you're being cultivated. And the moment you decide to act as if nothing can stop you, the moment you decide to push through the pain instead of parking in it, everything changes. The same soil that could have been your grave becomes the ground from which you grow. But I want to go deeper because there's something you need to understand about pain. Pain has a purpose. It's a signal system. It tells you something needs attention. When you touch a hot stove, pain tells you to move your hand. When you stay in a toxic relationship, emotional pain tells you to move your life. Pain is information. But most people treat pain like it's their identity instead of recognizing it as instruction. They camp out in their hurt instead of learning from it and moving forward. Think about an athlete. When they train, their muscles tear. That tearing creates pain. But that pain is not the end of the story. That pain is the beginning of strength. The body responds to that pain by rebuilding those muscles stronger than before. The pain was necessary for the growth. But imagine if the athlete felt that pain and decided to never train again. Imagine if they let the discomfort convince them they weren't meant to be strong. They'd stay weak forever, not because they couldn't grow, but because they let pain write their story. You've been letting pain write your story. Every time someone rejected you, you wrote a chapter about not being good enough. Every time something didn't work out, you wrote a chapter about being unlucky. Every time you tried and failed, you wrote a chapter about not being capable. And now you're walking around with this narrative that you're damaged goods. You're walking around believing that your past disqualifies you from your future. You're walking around thinking that because you got hurt, you're supposed to stay hurt. But what if I told you that every rejection was redirection? What if every closed door was protection? What if every painful season was preparation? What if the very things that hurt you the most were actually training you for something you can't even imagine yet? What if your pain wasn't punishment but preparation? What if your wounds weren't weaknesses but evidence that you've been in battles you survived? Before I continue, answer one question honestly. When was the last time you made a decision based on your potential instead of your pain? When was the last time you chose possibility over safety, growth over comfort, faith over fear? If you're still listening, something inside you is waking up. Something inside you is tired of living small. Something inside you is ready to stop letting yesterday's hurt dictate tomorrow's choices. Now here's where it gets real. Acting as if nothing hurts you requires a level of emotional maturity most people never develop. It requires you to separate your worth from your circumstances. It requires you to stop seeking validation from people who can't even validate themselves. It requires you to find your identity in something deeper than other people's opinions. It requires you to build your foundation on something that can't be shaken by temporary situations. Let me tell you about the lion. When a lion cub is born, it doesn't look like the king of the jungle. It's small, vulnerable, dependent. But inside that cub is a code, a design, a blueprint. That cub doesn't become a lion by trying to be a lion. It becomes a lion by being true to what it already is. Nobody has to teach the lion to roar. Nobody has to teach the lion to hunt. Nobody has to teach the lion to walk with authority. It's already in there. The lion doesn't act as if it's powerful. The lion acts from power that's already present. You've been trying to become something you already are. You've been trying to find value you already have. You've been trying to prove worth that was established before you were born. You came from a manufacturer who doesn't make defective products. You came with a design, a purpose, a destiny, but life happened. People hurt you. Circumstances crushed you. Disappointments discouraged you. And slowly, you forgot who you were. You started identifying with your pain instead of your purpose. But tonight, something shifts. Tonight, you remember, not because someone gave you permission, but because something inside you refuses to stay dormant anymore. Tonight, you decide that your pain will no longer be your identity. Tonight, you choose to act from your design instead of your damage. Tonight, you step into the truth that you were built for more than survival. You were built for dominance, for impact, for legacy. Let me tell you a story. There was a craftsman who made swords. When someone ordered a sword, they expected it to be ready quickly. But this craftsman had a different process. He would heat the metal until it glowed. Then he would hammer it, heat it again, hammer it again, over and over. The metal would scream under the pressure. It would bend, twist, cry out. And people would ask the craftsman, why are you torturing that metal? Why don't you just shape it gently? And the craftsman would say something profound. He would say, I'm not torturing it. I'm removing its impurities. I'm making it stronger. I'm preparing it for battle. If I'm gentle with it, it will break the first time it's tested. But if I'm ruthless with it now, it will save someone's life later. You are that metal. Life has been heating you, hammering you, testing you, and you thought it was punishment. You thought you were being destroyed, but you were being refined. You were being strengthened. You were being prepared for battles you haven't fought yet. You were being shaped for a purpose you haven't stepped into yet. And every blow that hurt you, every fire that tested you, it was removing impurities. It was making you sharper. It was preparing you for victory. But here's the critical part. The sword doesn't cry about the hammer. The sword doesn't hold a grudge against the fire. The sword doesn't identify as damaged metal. The sword understands its process. The sword knows that its value comes from what it endured, not in spite of what it endured. The sword acts as if nothing hurt it because it knows that everything that hurt it made it valuable. Now let's talk about isolation. So many of you are in seasons of loneliness right now. You feel disconnected. You feel forgotten. You feel like everyone moved on while you're still stuck, and you're wondering if something's wrong with you. You're wondering why you can't connect like you used to. You're wondering why relationships that once fit now feel uncomfortable. Let me tell you what's really happening. You're not being isolated, you're being insulated. You're not being rejected, you're being protected. You're not losing people. You're being freed from people who can't go where you're going. There's a season in every significant life where you must grow alone. Not because people abandoned you, but because your next level requires a different version of you. And that version can't emerge in the same environment that created your current version. You can't become who you're meant to be while trying to stay who you were. You can't step into your destiny while holding on to people who are comfortable with your history. You can't transform while surrounded by people who need you to stay the same. So life creates space. Life removes distractions. Life puts you in a room by yourself where the only voice you can hear is the voice of your true identity. And in that room, in that silence, in that solitude, something happens. You meet yourself, not the version everyone else wants you to be, not the version that performs for approval, not the version that shrinks to make others comfortable. You meet the real you, the authentic you, the you that's been buried under layers of other people's expectations. And here's what happens when you meet that version of yourself. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You stop seeking validation from people who don't understand your value. You start acting as if nothing hurts you because you realize that most of what hurt you was your attachment to things that were never meant to stay. You start walking differently. You start talking differently. You start choosing differently. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're aligned. Not because you're hard, but because you're whole. Let me tell you something about forests. When a forest grows, it doesn't grow loudly. Trees don't announce their growth. They don't compare their height to other trees. They don't compete for attention. They just grow in silence, in patience, in consistency. And one day, people walk into that forest and they're amazed. They're overwhelmed by the beauty, the strength, the majesty. But they didn't see the years of silent growth. They didn't see the roots digging deep in darkness. They didn't see the storms that tested every branch. They just see the result. They just see the glory. You in your silent season right now. Nobody's watching. Nobody's cheering. Nobody's celebrating. But you're growing. Your roots are going deeper. Your foundation is getting stronger. Your character is being developed. And when you emerge, when you step into the fullness of what's being prepared for you, people will be amazed. They'll wonder how you changed so fast. But you'll know the truth. You'll know it wasn't fast. It was faithful. You'll know it wasn't luck. It was labor. You know it wasn't magic. It was maturity developed in seasons when nobody was watching. Now here's where most people miss it. They think acting as if nothing hurts them means becoming cold. They think it means shutting down emotionally. They think it means building walls so high that nothing can touch them. But that's not strength. That's fear. That's not power. That's protection. Real strength is staying soft in a hard world. Real power is remaining open when life gives you reasons to close. Real courage is loving again after betrayal, trusting again after disappointment, trying again after failure. Acting as if nothing hurts you means you've processed your pain so deeply that it no longer controls your decisions. It means you've faced your wounds so honestly that they no longer define your worth. It means you've healed at such a fundamental level that your past can't poison your future. You're not pretending you weren't hurt. You're declaring that being hurt doesn't determine who you become. Think about water. When you throw a stone into water, it creates ripples. The water is affected. The water responds. But within moments, the water returns to calm. The stone sank, but the water remains. The impact happened, but the water didn't change its nature. The water didn't become the stone. The water remained water. That's emotional mastery. That's spiritual maturity. Life throws stones at you. People hurt you. Circumstances disrupt you. But you don't become the stone. You feel the impact. You acknowledge the disruption. But you return to your nature. You remain you. You've been letting stones change your nature. You've been letting temporary impacts create permanent damage. You've been letting people who barely know you determine how you see yourself. You've been giving strangers authority over your identity. You've been letting situations steal your peace. And all of it has to stop tonight. Not tomorrow, not when you feel better, not when circumstances change. Tonight, right now, in this moment. You decide that nothing and nobody gets to determine your worth except the one who gave you life. Let me take you deeper into this truth. Your value was established before you did anything right or wrong. Your worth existed before you achieved anything. Your purpose was assigned before you proved yourself. You didn't earn your value by performing. You can't lose your value by failing. You are valuable because you exist, period. But life taught you differently. Life taught you that your worth depends on what you accomplish, who accepts you, what you achieve. And you've been running on that broken system ever since. You perform for approval. You chase validation. You measure your worth by other people's reactions. And when they reject you, you crumble. When they criticize you, you question yourself. When they abandon you, you feel worthless. But here's the truth you need to internalize. Their rejection doesn't reduce your value. Their criticism doesn't change your design. Their absence doesn't diminish your purpose. You're still everything you were before they left. In fact, you might be more, because now you're not distracted by people who couldn't see what you carry. Now let's talk about direction versus movement. Most people are moving but not going anywhere. They're busy but not productive. They're active but not effective. Movement is easy. Direction is rare. You can move in circles your whole life and never arrive at your destination. You can work hard and still end up empty. You can be constantly busy and still feel unfulfilled. Because movement without direction is just motion. And motion without purpose is just activity. And activity without intention is just noise. You've been moving, you've been busy, you've been active. But have you been intentional about your direction? Have you been clear about where you're actually going? Or have you been running from pain instead of running toward purpose? Have you been reacting to wounds instead of responding to wisdom? Have you been letting your past push you instead of letting your vision pull you? Acting as if nothing hurts you requires clarity of direction. It requires knowing where you're going so clearly that temporary setbacks don't derail your journey. It requires having a vision so compelling that present pain becomes irrelevant. It requires understanding your purpose so deeply that people's opinions become background noise. When you know where you're going, obstacles become opportunities. When you're clear on your direction, rejection becomes redirection. When you're locked into your purpose, pain becomes preparation. Here's another truth that will free you. Good is often the enemy of right. You can be in a good situation that's not the right situation. You can be around good people who aren't your right people. You can be in a good place that's not your right place. And if you settle for good, you'll miss right. If you get comfortable with good enough, you'll never experience what's actually meant for you. But letting go of good to pursue right requires courage. It requires faith. It requires acting as if nothing hurts you when walking away from good hurts deeply. You know what I'm talking about. That job, that's good, but you know it's not right. That relationship that's comfortable, but you know it's not your fit. That city that's familiar, but you know it's not your place. That version of yourself that's acceptable, but you know it's not authentic. And you've been staying in good because you're afraid you don't deserve right. You've been settling because pain convinced you that settling is all you're worthy of. But tonight, you remember, tonight, you reclaim your standards. Tonight, you choose right over comfortable. Let me tell you what happens when you act as if nothing hurts you. People get confused. They expect you to be bitter, but you better. They expect you to be broken, but you're building. They expect you to be stuck, but you're soaring. They watched what happened to you, and they're waiting for you to fall apart. But you don't. You rise. You grow. You thrive. And it confuses them because they don't understand your process. They don't understand your foundation. They don't understand that you've tapped into a source of strength they've never accessed. And here's what else happens. You attract different things. You attract different people. You attract different opportunities. Because your energy shifts. Your frequency changes. Your vibration elevates. You stop operating from lack and start operating from abundance. You stop moving from fear and start moving from faith. You start speaking from wounds and start speaking from wisdom. And life responds to that shift. The universe responds to that elevation. God responds to that maturity. Now I want to address something critical. Some of you are thinking, but I don't feel strong. I don't feel like I can do this. I don't feel like acting as if nothing hurts me. And that's exactly my point. You don't wait to feel strong before you act strong. You act strong and the feeling follows. You don't wait to feel confident before you step forward. You step forward and confidence builds. You don't wait until pain disappears before you live powerfully. You live powerfully and pain loses its grip. Feelings follow actions. Emotions follow decisions. Power follows commitment. You've been waiting to feel ready. You've been waiting to feel healed. You've been waiting to feel whole. But healing happens in the doing, not in the waiting. Wholeness comes through moving forward, not through staying stuck. Strength develops through action, not through contemplation. You grow by doing the thing you're afraid to do. You heal by facing the thing you're avoiding. You become powerful by acting powerful before you feel powerful. Let me tell you about pottery. When a potter makes a vessel, they don't just shape it gently. They throw the clay. They spin it violently. They press hard. They trim ruthlessly. And then, after all that pressure, they put it in fire, intense heat, uncomfortable temperatures. And in that fire, the vessel either cracks or it hardens. It either breaks or it becomes unbreakable. The fire reveals what the vessel is made of. The heat determines whether it's decorative or functional. The temperature tests whether it can hold something valuable or if it's just for show. You've been in the fire. You've been under pressure. You've been tested at temperatures that should have broken you. But you're still here. You're still standing. You're still breathing. Which means you're not decorative. You're functional. You're not for show. You're for purpose. You're not ornamental. You're essential. And the fire that should have destroyed you actually made you unbreakable. So stop apologizing for being hard to break. Stop feeling bad about being difficult to manipulate. Stop thinking something's wrong with you because you don't crack under pressure anymore. You're not cold. You're refined. You're not heartless. You're protected. You're not detached. You're discerning. You've earned every layer of strength you carry. You've paid for every ounce of wisdom you possess. And anyone who can't handle the version of you that survived fire doesn't deserve access to the treasures that fire created. Here's what I need you to understand as we move toward the close. Your story isn't over. Your pain wasn't the end. Your wound wasn't the conclusion. What hurt you was a chapter, not the whole book. What broke you was an event, not your identity. What disappointed you was a season, not your destiny. And the moment you stop living like your past is your permanent address, the moment you stop treating your wound like it's your whole identity, everything shifts. You are standing at a threshold right now. On one side is everything familiar. Your pain, your patterns, your comfort zone, your excuses. On the other side is everything you've been called to become. Your purpose, your power, your potential, your promise. And you can't carry everything across that threshold. You can't bring old mindsets into new seasons. You can't carry victim mentality into victor territory. You can't drag yesterday's pain into tomorrow's purpose. So you have to choose. You have to decide tonight, right now, in this moment, are you going to keep rehearsing what hurt you, or are you going to start practicing what heals you? Are you going to keep talking about who left, or are you going to start preparing for who's coming? Are you going to keep looking at closed doors, or are you going to start walking toward open ones? Are you going to keep acting from your wounds, or are you going to start acting from your worth? I'm telling you, the version of you that's been waiting to emerge, the you that's been buried under pain and doubt and fear, that you is ready. That you is powerful. That you is unstoppable. That you doesn't need permission. That you doesn't need approval. That you doesn't need perfect conditions. That you just needs a decision, one moment of courage, one declaration that enough is enough. And when you make that decision, when you step into that version of yourself, something supernatural happens. Doors open that were locked. Opportunities appear that were hidden. People arrive that were waiting. Resources flow that were blocked. Not because you became someone different, but because you finally became who you always were. Not because you created something new, but because you uncovered something that was always there. You are not damaged goods. You are refined gold. You are not broken pieces. You are a masterpiece in progress. You are not yesterday's victim. You are tomorrow's victor. And everything that tried to destroy you actually prepared you. Everything that tried to bury you actually planted you. Everything that tried to silence you actually gave you a message worth shouting. So act as if nothing hurts you. Not because nothing hurts you, but because what hurt you no longer defines you. Act as if you're unstoppable. Not because you never fell, but because you refuse to stay down. Act as if you're valuable. Not because people validated you, but because your value isn't up for debate. Act as if you're destined for greatness. Not because life has been easy, but because difficulty developed something in you that comfort never could. Walk into rooms like you belong there. Speak like your words matter. Move like you have somewhere important to be. Love like you've never been hurt. Trust like you've never been betrayed. Dream like you've never failed. Because the truth is, every hurt taught you discernment. Every betrayal taught you wisdom. Every failure taught you resilience. You're not the same person who entered those experiences. You're stronger, you're wiser, you're better. And tonight, you stop waiting for permission to be that person. You stop waiting for people to see your value. You stop waiting for circumstances to improve. You stop waiting for pain to disappear. You stop waiting and you start walking. You start moving. You start building. You start creating. You start living. Not someday, not eventually, not when you're ready. Now, tonight, this moment, because your time is now. Your season is here. Your moment has arrived. And nothing, absolutely nothing, gets to steal it from you anymore. Not pain, not people, not circumstances, not your past, not your mistakes, not your wounds, nothing. You are taking back your power. You are reclaiming your peace. You are stepping into your purpose. And you're doing it as if nothing can stop you, because nothing can. This is your declaration. This is your moment. This is your time. Rise up, stand tall, move forward, and act as if nothing hurts you, not because you're pretending, but because you finally discovered that what's inside you is greater than anything that's happened to you. You are more powerful than your pain. You are bigger than your past. You are stronger than your struggle. And tonight, you remember. Tonight, you rise. Tonight, you become who you were always meant to be. If this message spoke to your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. And if you want more messages that grow your soul, subscribe, because your journey has just begun. You stand at the edge of something magnificent, not because your pain disappeared, but because you finally decided it won't dictate your direction anymore. You've carried that weight long enough. You've rehearsed those wounds long enough. You've lived small long enough. Tonight, something shifts inside you. Not gradually, not eventually, right now. Every giant you face, every obstacle in your path, every person who doubted you, they are all about to witness something they didn't see coming. They're about to watch you rise, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with a quiet, unshakable strength that comes from someone who's been through fire and refused to burn. You're not the same person who entered that storm. You're refined. You're ready. You're dangerous in the best possible way. Here's what happens next. You stop explaining yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You walk into your destiny with your head high and your heart open. You love fiercely. You build fearlessly. You speak boldly, because you've discovered something most people never find. You've discovered that your power isn't in never falling. Your power is in rising every single time. The world needs what you carry. The world needs your story. The world needs your strength. Not the fake version, not the filtered version, the real you. The you that bled but didn't die. The you that broke but didn't shatter. The you that hurt but didn't harden. That version of you is a walking miracle. That version of you is proof that pain doesn't get the last word. So go, step forward, build something beautiful, love someone deeply, create something meaningful, and do it all as if nothing can stop you. Because the truth is, once you decide that pain no longer controls you, nothing can. You become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because you got stronger. Not because obstacles disappear, but because you learn to move through them. Not because you stop feeling, but because you stop letting feelings make your decisions. This is your moment. This is your time. This is your declaration. You are powerful. You are purposeful. You are unstoppable. And nothing, absolutely nothing, hurts you anymore. Not because you're numb, but because you're free.